just come to the end of the Africa Climate Summit that was hosted here in Nairobi, Kenya. And for a lot of you, it was just one of those other conventions we have. You know, you have the Paris Agreement, the Kyoto Protocol, and the likes. But since I don't want you to be like some of our legislators who think the sun is too hot, that's why we're having this conference, sit with me for a few minutes here. So we've gotten to this place when we're talking about climate change that you're either torn in the two worlds, where it's very sensational and very out of reach in terms of how you can contribute to finding a solution, or you're on the very far end, on this side where this isn't really anything to bother us with. I mean, climates variate all the time, but allow me to walk you through some of the realities that are probably not registering at home. Currently in Kenya, we've lifted the ban for logging, and as you can see, we've gone back to logging trees. We happen to walk with crew to Machakos. I think this is in Kathiani, where dense amounts of forests are being cleared off with no legitimate plan to grow back these trees, which ideally would take close to even 10 to 20 years to grow them back. You're seeing extreme cases of drought in northeastern Kenya, which at this point almost sounds like another song we sing on and on and on. You're hearing cases of drought in Nyeri and other places in the country, and you're wondering, what can we do? How much food can we put forward? And things of that nature. But we need to come to this place of thinking about mitigation and move towards adaptation. And I think that is the biggest challenge that is facing a lot of economies in Africa. How do we finally move from this place of mitigating to finally getting to a place of adaptation? And that's why we have these summits. These summits, they help us set targets, and they help us also know who is responsible for these targets that at least are making sure we're reducing the average global temperatures. Now, what can me and you do in this whole narrative? Perhaps you own a business, perhaps you're an employee, perhaps you're not even in that economic cycle directly, you're more on the consumer end. This calls for us to think about sustainability beyond something we just do in corporate to something we do in our homes. And this starts with the small things. Are we thinking shopping from brands that are using sustainable packaging? Have you ever thought of using the same can for your products, your milk, carrying shopping bags instead of always having plastic? Have you thought of how can we think about even growing some of our foods at home? Beyond that, how much water do you use even just brushing your teeth? All these are elements that are just within our immediate environment. You probably leave the water running while you're brushing your teeth. You like those long 2-hour showers where, you know, we're not really thinking about the water bill. But there's a lot of elements in sustainability that involves our everyday life. Not from the food we eat, the clothes we shop. You know, how often do you even buy clothes? Do you ever sit down and ask yourself, do I need a new dress for a new event? Probably not. What do I do with my old clothes if I'm not donating them? All these are elements of sustainability that we need to start questioning. And they not only help us develop new technologies, they also allow us to now adapt to a new way of living. It's not in a very extreme, far-fetched ideology. It's just we need to change our consumerism mindset. We're so quick on the get it now, have it done, let me find my solution, and let me move. When it comes to a government, it is within our mandate as me and you to keep our governments in check in terms of the targets and the incentives they're giving towards sustainability and mitigating climate change. So don't just think about the summits as one of those other events that activists go to, but think of it as a check and balance that your governments are making commitments for the kind of future that you and your children will have. So the next time you hear climate change, don't just think about it from a very sensationalized element. Think about it from home to the companies we support and to our governments. And above everything, last year, I remember feeling very particular that most of our politicians were not addressing climate change as a true element that is, or as a true danger in our current society. So even when you're thinking of voting, can you question some of these legislators some of these legislators, how much do they actually know about climate change? Can you push for initiatives that educate parliamentarians, school-going kids, people in rural areas and things of that nature, how we can move towards adaptation? Because it's very important that we think about this holistically and not just as private sector or as people incorporate. We need to bring everyone on board. So the next time you're thinking of scrolling, remember to share this video to someone else that needs to find more information about climate change and where to start. And let's keep the conversation going.